minutes.
And coming up in the next 60 minutes, legal fight for parliamentary seat intensifies with Takwa Insoyem petition bringing the number to 8 parliamentary election petitions filed so far. Tonight we'll tell you more about all these petitions and the reasons. Stay with us. Also tonight, CSOs in the education sector and GNEC in coalition over a new policy to coordinate and harmonize operations of NGOs, civil society and faith-based organizations in the education space.
My question is, what is the nurse doing there? That nurse, what is she doing there?
We'll bring you more on that. And Ghana Education Service encourages all girls who become pregnant or gave birth during the COVID-19 induced closure of schools to return as basic schools prepare to reopen next week. Details as the Deputy Director of GES says there could be a challenge getting all pupils back, as some of them are now engaged in economic activities like illegal mining.
And in business, Securities and Exchange Commission justifies action on Chinese firm CHY, insisting it is engaged in capital market activities.
And later in sports, Manchester United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer believes it's important for his side to establish themselves as title contenders ahead of their game against Burnley later tonight.
And much later here on Newsnight, 100 engineers in 10 years will tell you about the ambitious goal of former Education Minister Dr. Yao Osei-Duchum as he funds a batch of 30 students to the university.
Engineers are problem solvers, and if you have a critical mass of them, then you will see the transformation. And when they come back, not only are they going to impact their communities, they're also going to impact the nation called Ghana.
You want to join us with your views and comments on all these stories and more on our WhatsApp console? It's
05511119997. Also, heightened clamoring for positions in the Akufo-Addo government as president looks to set to name appointees for his secretariat and cabinet. All that and more coming up. If you're watching us live on Facebook, you can also leave your comments there. I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Ernest Manu. And you're welcome to Newsnight. Now, the quest by the governing NPP and the opposition NDC to gain control of Ghana's parliament will not end anytime soon, as at least 4 parliamentary election petitions have been filed in the last 72 hours. This brings to 8 the number of pending cases that, when determined, could potentially change how parliament looks. As at midday, we had 6, and then we have one more. And so that brings it to 8. Now, as it stands, both the NDC and the NPP have 137 seats, with an independent candidate joining to make the 275-member legislative body. Fresh petitions have in the last few days been filed against the former Energy Minister John Peter Apawu and the former Deputy Regional Organization Minister Martin J. Mensah Kosa, as well as Takwa Insoyem MP Meku Duka. Now, there's more in the following report by my colleague Kweku Asante.
We should pass legislation clearly stating where that election stands and how it should be conducted. We are still evolving. And our experience from Thursday shows us that we should be very clear in how we go about this. And for instance, look at what happened with the seating, for instance. It shouldn't have happened. My opinion is that election of speaker is not a public election, so that whatever happens there, the people cannot be punished under our public election laws. Standing orders of parliament makes provision for punishing people, whether MPs or MPs-elect or strangers, who misbehave in parliament. So they can be punished under those standing orders. What they did, in my opinion, amounts to contempt of parliament. Okay. They can be taken under those.
We apologize for that wrong insect. We'll bring you that report in subsequently in the bulletin. Essentially, a report cataloging the number of cases that have been filed at the court. We have 8 seats being contested by the NPP and the NDC. I'll bring you details later here on Newsnight.
Now we move on to education, Ernest, because there's a lot happening on that front. Some civil society groups in the education sector and the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, GNEC, are in sharp disagreement over a new policy to coordinate and harmonize the operations of NGOs, civil society and faith-based organizations in the education space. The policy, according to the Ghana Education Service, is to minimize duplication of activities of NGOs in the educational sector and harmonize their work with the public sector strategy. So before we hear from one of the CSOs kicking against the policy, let's take a look at the highlights of that new framework. My colleague Elton Brobe joins me in studio with details of that. Elton, what's the GES's justification for this policy?
Emefa, according to the policy, there's growing number of CSOs and NGOs implementing projects in the education sector, and a wide array of issues they cover makes it imperative to find ways of monitoring and regulating what they provide to beneficiaries. Secondly, they say there is also the absence of structured system of information gathering and inadequate information reporting on the complementary roles of CSOs and NGOs in the education sector, among others.
And so this, framework promotes 5 objectives according to the policy that we are looking at.
Exactly.
What are these?
So the GS says that the objectives of this policy is to develop and maintain a national register and database of all NGOs in the sector. Secondly, to ensure activities of NGOs in the education space are addressing the sector objectives in their areas of operation in a harmonized and well-coordinated way. Thirdly, to develop guidelines for NGOs in the sector, including registering and reporting procedures and a code of conduct. Fourth is to monitor and evaluate the standard of operations of NGOs. And finally, to ensure transparency and accountability.
Okay, now let's go on to the phone lines now. So basically, this is what the policy talks about, Elton.
Exactly.
And let's go on to the phone lines now. We know that some of the NGOs and some of the CSOs are not happy about this move by the Ghana Education Service. Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, says the policy will undermine the right of NGOs to freedom of association, their independence, and as well as the limit, their civic space for these players. He joins us on the line right now. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on Newsnight. This policy essentially seeks to coordinate your activities. Why are you opposed to it?
Good evening and good evening to your cherished audience. We are opposed to the policy because it is not the mandate of GES to regulate CSOs. The GES's mandate is to deliver tertiary education. And the mandate to regulate or coordinate the activity of CSOs is a peripheral one. That notwithstanding, we admit that it is important for CSOs to situate their interventions within education policy. But that is indeed the fact. CSOs in the district work closely with the district education office. You cannot go to a district and go and build a school without going through the assembly and the district education office. So it's overly simplistic to assume that there's a huge disconnect between what CSOs do and government policy. And in fact, if you look at the problem statement, which came before the objectives, there has been no evidence-based data. There's no research that goes to support the fact that CSOs are implementing interventions that are not in tandem with government policy. That in itself is a fallacy. So the objectives you mentioned, the exception of the need to strengthen the GS's own capacity to coordinate CSO work, all the rest are a figment of the GS's imagination, because there's no research to suggest that NGOs are deploying interventions inconsistent with the education strategic plan. There's nothing like that.
Essentially, your work borders on the work that the GS does, which is education. And so any move in making sure that they align and make sure that your activities essentially do not interfere in the work should be welcome.
Exactly. And that is why we have said that if the GS is interested in streamlining activities of CSOs in line with the education policy, that is most welcome. But they can do that by doing three things. Build the capacity of CSOs in the district on government education policy. And this should be done by the district education officers. Second, all you need to do is that ask them to submit copies of their reports to your education office annually. And then third, if you want to verify issues relating to their education sectors, the district social welfare office exists in the district and has been doing this for decades. If you go work with the district social welfare office, you will have access to all certification documents of NGOs in the district. But you don't create a duplicating, policy. The policy that seeks to harmonize should not duplicate. But this is duplicating. You are sending a new report to GES when you already send a report to Registrar General and then the Department of Social Welfare under the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection. Most importantly is the infringement of this policy on our Article 21 rights. Article 21 of the 1990 Constitution enjoins all Ghanaians to the right to free association. This policy is saying that for you to qualify to run an NGO in the education sector, one must be a member of a private voluntary organization called NEC. That is inconsistent with the Constitution and also with the Supreme Court case in Mensima versus AG. Apart from that, if you look at the spirit behind the letter, it is obvious that there is a latent agenda to constrict the civic space instead of expanding the civic space. Because you can't say that GES will certify and permit CSOs to operate in the sector. That is not correct, because we CSOs come in to complement your efforts and hold you accountable. How can you certify me when my job is to hold you accountable? It doesn't sit well.
But Mr. Asari, why would you think that government would have an agenda to constrain your work, to constrain the work of civil society organizations, NGOs in the education space, when all you have done over the years is to contribute in growing the sector and also criticizing policy and providing alternatives?
The word I used was constrict, and it is because government is not happy when civil society organizations criticize them. It is not just this government, but governments normally are not happy to be criticized. And so by constricting the space, government determines which NGO operates in the sector and who does not operate. Immediately you arrogate that mandate to GES, then CSOs that are known to be critical of government will definitely be, sidelined. Can you imagine the GES giving license to Africa Education to operate? Because we are the ones who will blow the whistle on bad governance issues in GES.
And so for you think this is targeted at organizations like yours?
Pardon me?
You think this is targeted at organizations like yours?
Oh, no. I have earlier said that there's nothing wrong with strengthening the GES capacity to coordinate and harmonize its work with CSOs, which is already ongoing. But the point at which we differ is the approach. If the approach did not trample on our Article 21 rights, if the approach did not duplicate by asking us to register GES, register with NEC, pay dues to GES, and be renewing our certificate with SAME, if the approach did not duplicate what is already conferred to the Ministry of Gender and Children as the mandate to regulate NGOs, we wouldn't be talking about this. But let me just tell you one thing. There's an NGO bill currently being led by the Ministry of Gender with support from IDEC and Oxfam. This bill is being pushed through Parliament. It's being sent to Parliament by the agency of government that has the mandate to regulate all NGOs. Why wouldn't you wait for that bill to go through Parliament? Then you can think of developing something, if you so wish, to change the status quo that conforms to the bill. If we always rush and develop policies when there are no legal justifications, what will happen is essentially what happened under the Public University Bill, where you pass a pituitary policy which has no legal mandate, then you later try to push through a law to legitimize or validate or rationalize the policy, and then you struggle. So the GES shouldn't be in a rush. Let's wait for the Ministry of Gender to send the NGO bill to Parliament. If it is passed, the GES will be in a better position to develop a policy that strengthens its own capacity and also gives it a proper framework that doesn't trample on the rights of CSOs, that doesn't constrict the civil space, so that we can all agree that this policy is within the NGO bill.
But Mr. Sorry, you keep on stressing the issue of constricting the space. I'm wondering how many CSOs do we have in the education sector? There aren't many of you.
Suggests that we are close to 1,000 CSOs in the education sector. Okay, but then very few of us are involved in frontline governance and advocacy. Okay, and as you are a keen observer, you realize that most CSOs are very, very conservative and normally interested in supporting government or policy participation.
I want you to hold the line for me, Mr. Sari. We're joined, fortunately, by the Director of NGOs at the GES, Mr. Fred Bikurang. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on Newsnight. And I'm wondering, what is the motive behind compelling all CSOs to become members of a voluntary organization as a requirement for certification?
Okay, so good evening, your various listeners. My office is actually called Partnership and Affiliation. The Ghana Education Service has a mandate. I mean, our mandate is to provide a suitable access to quality teaching and learning for children. One of the critical things is what we do.
If you can position yourself well, we keep losing you along the line.
Is it better? Can you hear me?
Yes, I think this is better now.
Okay, so I was saying that one of the essential things that is to protect.
Unfortunately, the connection to you is not good. We'll work on that and have Mr. Bikram back on the line to answer some of the questions. But we'll still have Mr. Kofi Asari on the line. Mr. Asari, as we speak, the 7th Parliament, expired. There's a new Parliament. It means that essentially the bill is not before any Parliament. Would you want to make some input into the bill or have it withdrawn totally?
What the GES is proposing is not even a bill. It is actually a policy at the level of the service. So it's actually a departmental policy, sort of. It is not actually a bill. The bill is actually what is being led by the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, which is an NGO bill. Okay, that's a broad legal framework within which NGOs will have to operate. Because we agree that we have come far, and there needs to be a new legislation, to enable the ministry strengthen its oversight. So
okay.
GES's policy is only a microcosm of a policy that must situate within a legal framework. The legal framework is not in Parliament, but then they want to put the cart before the horse.
Let's go to the other line. Mr. Fred Bikran is back on the line. Thank you very much. So you were making the point, answering the question about why you think there's a need to compel some of these CSOs to become, members of this organization, and that will be a necessary requirement for their certification.
Okay, so the point I was making earlier on was that we also have a mandate to protect the learning space, including facilities and learners in all the schools that we are overseeing. But more critically, on issues relating to COVID, there are a number of protocols that we are expected to deal with to ensure that the kids are safe and protected, to ensure that they can have quality teaching and learning for us to go back to school. In the past, a lot of these NGOs have contributed significantly towards education delivery in Ghana. And the Ghana education
Mr. Bikram, before you continue, I'm wondering if you have a radio set just close by. You may want to just walk away from it or just put it off. It's giving us some feedback in the background.
I don't have a radio here.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay, so clearly, as I indicated, we appreciate the contributions of the CSOs and NGOs towards the sector. What we essentially seek to do is to kind of regulate and ensure that these CSOs are conforming to what we are doing at the sector. We want to ensure that whatever they are doing, they are using acceptable structures and procedures to ensure that we can get a feedback and evaluate the kind of contributions that they are doing. But more critically, we are focusing on attempting to ensure that we develop and maintain a register and database of all NGOs that are working in the sector. So I think I heard Kofi mention that in the past they would go to the district office and engage the district education office, and they will register them and all of that. The truth of the matter is that Kofi also did add that when these NGOs are registered, there's a procedure. As a matter of fact, the requirement is that they are expected to go to the Registrar General Department to go, and as mandated by the Companies Code Act 1963, to have their registration. In addition to that, they go to the Department of Social Welfare. These registrations that the NGOs go through are all done at the national level. So I'm surprised that he is insisting that the registration should be done only at the district level and not at the regional.
But you make the point, Mr. Bekran, if all of these, formalities are that the registration at the Registrar General's Department, the Department of Social Welfare, and these bodies are in charge of registering and reviewing the certificates of these NGOs, why should the GES take interest in duplicating such functions?
So what we seek to do is not an attempt to re-register and go through what they have done with the Registrar General and the Department of Social Welfare. And I think I emphasize that all that we seek to do is to want to maintain a register and database. We want to know which NGOs are working and where they are and what they are doing, essentially. That's all we seek to do.
And we understand that as part of the consolidation, they would have to necessarily be part of the GNEC, and that would be a requirement for certification. Is that right?
Okay, so the reality of the matter is that this framework that we are discussing is only at a draft stage. What we sought to do was to engage coalitions. So my understanding is that there are 3 coalitions for NGOs working in the education sector. We have the GNEC as one, the Northern Network for Education Development as the second one, and the International NGOs Organization. So we met them to discuss the draft framework and to get their input to ensure that we get a constructive feedback. We were going to further engage all the NGOs who are working in the sector to discuss this framework. So we haven't even gotten to a stage where we even consider implementation. So it comes as a surprise that the Education Watch organization has taken this up as though this is something that we have started implementing.
But Mr. Baker, you mentioned that there are 3 coalitions that these CSOs and NGOs are under. I'm wondering what this policy then, the problem exactly it will be solving. If you have these 3 coalitions and you engage them on a regular basis, is it difficult engaging them? Do you have to put all of them together? What is the problem this will be solving exactly?
So our understanding is that the coalitions are an umbrella body that brings together all the civil society organizations that work in the sector. So our thinking was that once we are able to get in touch with these 3 organizations, we would have like a wider engagement with all, because we thought that they have a base with all the other NGOs which are working in the sector. And my understanding is that is what is actually happening. So this is coming as a surprise. So we are now also getting an impression that the Education Watch is also another coalition that is kind of working against the implementation of this framework. But as I indicated, we haven't gotten to even the stage that
we
will take implementation. We are only looking at so it's only a consultation that we are doing.
Very well. Thank you very much. That's the Director of NGOs at the GS, Fred Baker. And earlier, you heard the Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare. This is a conversation that has just started. Emefa, we'll get to learn more in the coming days.
Well, let's get into governance away from education and its coalitions. President Akufo-Addo is set to name his specs for his secretariat and cabinet positions in the next 24 hours. And already there's heightened clamoring for jobs as Joy News learns, some of them doing so through influential personalities. That's what always happens within the ruling party, traditional rulers and prominent clergymen. So Parliament is expected to resume sitting on Friday, and sources say the list will be ready for the Speaker's referral to the Appointments Committee. Now, the bones is taking flesh, like Elton would say, and we can tell you some of the names likely to feature in the Akufo-Addo's second term in office. Presidential Affairs correspondent Elton Brobe is with us in the studio. Elton, you come bearing news.
So, Emefa, so I have two communications from the Chief of Staff. I don't know whether we should start with that or we should go straight to the names that we have so far.
Don't worry, let's start with the Chief of Staff's office first.
All right, so this just came in, dated 12 January 2021, and this is from the Chief of Staff. I don't know whether it is still right for us to even refer to her as the Chief of Staff because her term of office expired on the 6th of January.
And she was officially
but she's still signing
act,
letters
yeah. Okay.
and giving directives to state organizations to act. And this particular one is directed at all statutory boards and corporations. And it says the reconstitution of statutory boards and corporations. It says pursuant to Section 14.1 of the Presidential Transition Act 2012, Act 845, all persons appointed by the President or a Minister of State as members of statutory boards and corporations cease to hold office on 7 January 2021. For the avoidance of doubt, representatives of constituents bodies on the statutory boards and corporations are not affected by this directive. The statutory boards and corporations shall be reconstituted by the President or the relevant appointing authority in due course. The President thanks all persons who served as members of the statutory boards and corporations and wishes them the best in their future endeavors. Please take note and act accordingly. And this is signed by Honorable Akosia Fima Osei-Opare, Chief of Staff to the President, and is addressed to all chairpersons, also addressed to the Vice President, the Secretary to the President, and the Director General, State Interest and Governance Authority. And we're talking about Stephen Asamoah Watson. So this is for statutory boards. Yeah. Now, there's also another directive from the same Chief of Staff, and this is to all MMDCEs. And it says that I am directed by His Excellency the President to inform all metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives who were at post immediately before the inauguration ceremony on Thursday, 7 January 2021, to remain at post until further notice. This directive is in accordance with Article 243 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. You are to take note of the provisions of Section 14.5 of the Presidential Transition Act, which says that you shall not take a decision involving a policy issue. Also, you are to act in accordance with the provision of this letter dated 21st December 2020, which gives directives on financial commitment, recruitment, among others. And this is to all MMDCs, Emefa, and also copy to the Secretary to the President and the President of the Republic of Ghana, and as well as the representatives of the President's Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. So two communications that just came in.
Okay, so the statutory boards and then, of course, the MMDCs. Now, give us the names. Cabinet, what are you picking up?
So, for what we picked is that hopefully by the close of today or early tomorrow morning, we'll have the first list of appointees. Now, I'm told that yesterday there have been several meetings, and one of them had to do with those who have presidential ambitions for 2024. And the directive to them is that they should stay out of the second term of the president.
Who are these?
Well, at this stage, I want to believe that they know themselves. One person who has come out boldly to say that will contest the 2024 presidential race is the former railways minister, Mr. Joe Gate. He is on record to have said that he will put himself out for election when the party opens nomination to select a candidate to lead the party in the 2024 general elections. My information is that the president has had discussions with potential presidential aspirants in the MPP. And the narrative is that if you are visible, you will not be allowed to play a role in the government. And for that reason, you have the opportunity and the time to pursue your presidential agenda.
But I'm curious, Elton, in your interactions, did the name of the vice president not come up?
Well, as of now, it is unclear whether he's made formal declaration.
Yes, because if they've been told to stay away, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll wait and see and hear the names that may come up regarding persons in the MPP who have presidential ambition. Remember that the party will, when they are in power, they go to Congress a year before the election. So we are looking at 2023. But the narrative is that if you have such an ambition, it is better you go and concentrate on it rather than stay in government and have divided attention. So President has met some of them, and this information has gone out to them. Now, you are likely to have the current chief of staff continue in office as the chief of staff in the second term of the presidency. And also likely to see somebody like Kwabena Ajay-Japan as a deputy chief of staff. And then the director of communication will continue to do his work as director of communication at the presidency. But the deputy, Fatih Abubakar, a lawyer, my information is that there's still discussion as to whether they should combine communication and information. If communication and information is combined, Esla will still be the minister, but Fatih Abubakar will move from the presidency to that ministry as deputy minister in charge of information. That will be the role she will play. What I'm picking is that our own Jefferson Sek is likely to be moved to the deputy communication director at the Jubilee House. That is information I'm picking right now. The secretary to the president may continue to play that role as secretary to the president. The other deputy chief of staff, the name I'm picking is Michael Furiata. Currently, he is a presidential advisor on ECOWAS. Somebody who plays behind the scenes, but now is being moved to the front line. And my information is being nominated as a deputy chief of staff because you have the two deputies who are all now in parliament. So this will be the first set of appointments that we are likely to hear.
And the other deputy will be Kwabena
Ajay-Japan and Michael Furiata, who is currently presidential advisor on ECOWAS. And my information is that he may be moved to act as deputy chief of staff. So this appointment does not require parliamentary approval. Rather, it will be the Council of State to look at the CV and advise the president accordingly. We also don't have a Council of State. So they'll all be in acting position until the Council of State is reconstituted. And then these appointments will be given to them for them to study and report to the president. And then we will have them perform their role in permanent, position. So this is the first set that we are all waiting to hear from the presidency regarding the president's secretariat.
And how soon will the rumors be
my information is that it may happen today or early tomorrow morning because everything is done and dusted on these matters.
Okay. Elton is being very, very diplomatic. I think you should take a course in diplomatic relations and don't you think so? So he has the names, but...
So now let's talk about what we are picking for the ministry. We are not likely to see...
Yes, you are not getting there.
So let's go. We are not likely to see new faces. You are likely to see old faces, but in different roles. So it's like an old wine in a new bottle. And Matthew Procurement the Education Minister, my information, I may be moved to energy. His deputy, Dr. Yao Dichum, will take over as Minister for Education in this second term. Names like John Peter Meu, what I'm picking is that he may head to the Railway Ministry. It's going to be a standalone ministry. Aviation will rather come under transport. So transport and aviation put together, but railway will be a standalone ministry because of the government vision to extend railway across the country. And then the Ashanti Regional Minister, my information, I may be moved into a cabinet position, but we don't know yet. Dan Boche, we are told, will move to the local government and the rural development ministry.
Already he's acting.
Yes, he's
acting in his
same ministry as Minister for Reorganization. And Food and Agriculture, the same person likely to maintain this position, Alan Shamantin, Trade and Industry. And this is not surprising because my information is that right after the elections, when people probed as to who was likely to be in government, my information is that President told them that two persons that he was 100% sure that they will have a role will be the roles and the trade minister. So Alan Shamantin will continue to hold his position as trade minister. It's unclear for now whether he has presidential ambition, because if he has that ambition, then the advice is that you step aside and concentrate on it rather than come and have divided attention. Kwajo Nkrumah, by information, he will still have a ministerial position, but it's unclear for now. 3 individuals, Defense, Interior, and also told of Kwajo Nkrumah, they are yet to decide where to place them. There are issues that they are trying to deal with. The current
defense, you're talking of Dominic Nitiwu and Ambrose Day.
Yeah. Okay. And then also the current Foreign Affairs Minister are likely to maintain the position, but you are likely to see a change at Attorney General's ministry.
What
where the deputy is likely to be elevated to the position of substantive minister. What will come of Gloria Akufu is unclear for now. My information is that what is even left is who to partner Godfrey Dame in this particular ministry. what I'm picking is that Anthony Insiasari, the current presidential advisor on health, may be elevated to the position of a minister for health. And then it goes on to talk about Senso Boachi being considered for works and housing, Abu Junapo likely to go to lands and natural resources, son of the late Vice President Aliyu Mahama, also being considered for a deputy ministerial position at the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And then it is now confirmed that ministries like monitoring, evaluation, procurement, business development, regional reorganization, among others, have been phased out.
Okay. Elson Brobe giving us all the information, all the details. And in less than 24 hours or so, we should get the first batch of list. But the NDC side have been commenting on this. The chief whip for the NDC, Mutaka Mubarak, has mentioned that there should be regional balance. They are looking out for that in the next appointments committee. But the leader himself, Haruna Idrisu, has also been talking about what is to come when it comes to the vetting.
One of the concerns of Ghanaians that I picked up very strongly is, will the NDC take part in appointments committee? Will the NDC take part in vetting of ministers? We do not intend to cavil about that matter. We've been voted into office to seek the public good and to work not as lazy MPs, but hardworking members of parliament. So be assured that the NDC is more likely to participate in the vetting process and appointment of ministers than to boycott it. We are more likely. We are discussing it with the main party and together with the elected MPs at a caucus level. But I can assure you that we are more likely to participate in the scrutiny of ministers, to examine their intellect, to examine their temperament, and to make many of them now accountable. You know, in 2016, many of them were without record. The vetting was more like a CV vetting. You just look at the CV. Now, many of them will walk to us with a public record and some unacceptable record and some record that they must account to the Ghanaian people why they did this at that particular time and whether what they did was in the national interest or not. So appointments committee, we are reviewing.
You say his presidency is illegitimate.
Yes. We are questioning the legitimacy of his election, and we believe sincerely that he did not win the 2020 elections. We will soon share with you some statistics. What I do know is that a candidate got 49.0608%, not 50 plus 1 as is being churned out. If you do a proper analysis of 275 pink sheets that is in my possession and in the possession of others. I'm just saying, yes. So, and the Constitution provides that you must win 50 plus 1, and that is what we are questioning in court. So even though we are not recognizing the legitimacy of his authority and mandate as president, we have a duty to be dutiful to the Ghanaian people in examining persons that he may want to perform other roles in government.
How many would you have?
12. 1 3 and 1 3. You can change it. That's what the Ghanaian people want for the next 4 years.
And the chair of the committee will be Jose, who's the first deputy speaker?
Naturally, a first deputy speaker chair.
Because would he have voting privileges?
I won't respond to that. What I do know is that the NDC is more likely to participate in that important national duty and exercise of the scrutiny and vetting and examination of ministers so nominated by the presidents whose legitimacy we are questioning.
And so that's Haruna Idrisu, the leader of the NDC side in Parliament. And one thing is for sure, the appointments committee and the vetting this time around will be very, very interesting.
And they've already sounded the note of caution.
Absolutely. It's now time for business, and George is here. Hello, George.
Hi, Kojo. And coming up in business, you'll be hearing from the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is actually justifying its action on the Chinese firm CHY that they are actually operating in the capital market space, and that is why they asked them to step out because they don't have the required license. And also the first forward sale of dollars for this year secured more than $130 million in bids, far more than what the Bank of Ghana was willing to sell in the auction. I'll be getting you more details on that one. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of Business Kingdom books and stationery, and also brought to you by Allianz Insurance.
1, 2, 3, Oh, don't worry, Grandpa. There are still 5 ripe and 15 unripe mangoes on the tree.
That's my boy.
Grandpa, it's still 1.2 kilograms of rice in the container.
My boy. And how much credit did I spend last week?
Well, you spent 5 CDs on calls, 2 megabytes on data, and you sent 5 SMSs.
We are the first network that tells you exactly what you have spent and when you spent it. Dial *156# to access your statement on MTN. We are good together. We day for you everywhere you go.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHS, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
Alliance Life Insurance, we secure your future. Alliance Life Insurance, we secure your future. Alliance Life Insurance, yeah, bohudachi hubai. Alliance Life Insurance, yeah, bohudachi hubai. Alliance Life Insurance since 1890. At Alliance Life Ghana, we have a wide range of life insurance packages, suit or pocket for individuals, groups, associations, and businesses.
We cover your employees, your funerals, pensions, and children's education, project, and your future. Call us on 0302-267-892 or visit our website www.alliance-gh.com for more inquiries. Alliance Life, we secure your future.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission has justified its action on Chinese firm CHY, the regulator of the capital market, in a recent notice directed the public not to deal with the Chinese firm because it was actually playing in the capital market space without the required license. But CHY Century Hong Group that the Chinese firm is rejecting this claim. But the Securities and Exchange Commission now says it stands by its action. Deputy Director General Legal Deborah Mausia Jamfrau has been speaking to the Communications and External Affairs Director at the Commission. Gordon Answer.
The Securities and Exchange Commission has as its mandate investor protection. So anything that concerns investors is something that we have to issue a warning on if we feel that there's some threats to investors in Ghana.
How did the operations of the entity, that is CHY Mall, come to the attention of the SEC?
We want to first thank investors in Ghana because at the peak of the inquiries we got from investors, we were getting about 50 phone calls and emails in a day with inquiries about the operations of the CHY company. In addition to that, the SEC itself has a monitoring team. So we also picked up some signals about the operations of this company, which led to us inviting them for a number of meetings and also undertaking our own investigations. Then thirdly, the SEC doesn't work in isolation. We work with other law enforcement agencies. So we got some information from them as well.
So what was the conclusion of the SEC after these investigations?
What the SEC noticed is that there are some characteristics of capital market in the operations of CHY company. What it is that there's the argument that they are saying they operate an e-commerce business, but it doesn't matter what you call yourself. It's important that the regulators also ask themselves questions and investigate your operations.
And that's the Deputy Director General Legal, Deborah Mausia Imfra, speaking to the Communications and External Affairs Manager at the Commission, that is Godwin Ansah. Now, the first forward sale of dollars to businesses and banks by the Bank of Ghana witnessed far more in bids than what was available for the auction. The central bank made available some $50 million, but bids that came in was about $137 million. We have more in the following Business Desk report.
From the auction results, it is clear that demand for dollars was very high among various businesses and banks. This development might again support the claim that demand for dollars around these times is always at its peak, as most businesses try to import to restock for the rest of the year. The highest set of bids come from those that wanted to supply dollars to the Bank of Ghana in 7 days. These sets of individuals and businesses submitted bids totaling $63 million. However, the Bank of Ghana was just willing to sell $22.5 million at a selling rate of 5 cedis 83 pesos. Also, about 1 million bids that came in were deemed to be invalid due to their inability to complete the necessary paperwork by the bidding institutions. The auction again shows that the Bank of Ghana does not see the cedi hitting the dreaded 6 Ghana cedi mark in the first quarter of this year, despite the expected pressure. From the documents covering the auction, the Bank of Ghana has also increased the amount of dollars it is willing to sell for the first 3 months of 2021. A clear indication of the regulator's preparedness to deal with the expected pressure on the cedi. The central bank sees this forward sale of dollars as one of the several measures to help stabilize the cedi in the first quarter of this year, as it seeks to manage demand for dollars by businesses.
It's a Business Desk report. Now, a labor consultant, Austin Game, is charging the Trades Union Congress to show more interest in the operations of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust. According to him, the labor organization is seen as a critical stakeholder of SNIT, must also intensify its oversight responsibility to ensure that contributions and their investments are safe. He made the call while advising government to give SNIT some free hand to operate.
Here we are now. It appears that government are the people now controlling the finances of SNIT. That's not what was envisaged. Like I said, I formed part of the team that wrote the pension scheme. We did not envisage that SNIT should be under the control of government. I don't think that we are managing SNIT well, and fortunately I was one of the 2-member team that was sent to have a discussion with them at the time we were writing the pension scheme. So I do know the details, to be honest with you, and I'm not happy. I'm not too keen about how we want to choose to manage ourselves. But as employers, as workers, we need to be protected. And TUC, as organized labor, is on the SNIT board. They must, with their eyes open, ensure that the investment is clean and clear.
Austin Game is a labor consultant. To the stock market news, MTN was the only mover at the end of trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange. So if you are a shareholder of MTN, you could witness that every shareholder witnessed shares is worth around 66 pesos at the end of trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange. This was after some 20 million shares exchanged hands at the end of trading, worth over 30 million Ghana cedis. And that's all for business on Newsnight. Back to you, Emefa and Kojo Manu.
Thank you very much, George. We are enjoy the rest of your evening. Let's do some of your messages before we move on to some other stories. And then later we have sports as well. This time, this one from Ernest from Taifa. Ernest from Taifa sending in a message to Ernest Manu. He says, this time Nanado's appointee should be square pegs in square holes, meaning I want to see multi-competent men and women to create jobs through industrialization. Still, the future of MPP government looks bright. Citizen Sika Togo from East Lagos Legon says, I think that for the composition of the next core of cabinet and ministerial positions, we implore the president to pick competent and technically qualified candidates to the various sectors to push our country to its fullest potential. This one also says Dr. Yaweduchum will be the best replacement, and I think he will do a better job. It will be a good news to scrap some ministries which are needless, just waste of resources, and cut down the ministers. See, that has no name. And I'll take a final one from Abdulaziz Nindo Katochi in Ntema. He says the minority leader is seeking to equalize their unlawful assembling at the EC to the ASP's presence at the chamber. The minority leader should know that nobody is above the law and must therefore bow his head in shame for justifying the illegal assembly as legal. These are some of your messages that you've sent in via WhatsApp. Is 055-1111-997. We're also live on Facebook, and you've been sending them as well. We'll acknowledge them shortly.
And it's now time for the latest in the world of sports, and the man who sings his name, Hans Mensah Andor, is here.
He does?
He does.
I've got a question for Emefa.
What question?
Which of the London clubs do you support?
Massa.
The last time I heard,
by now, I haven't learned my lesson. Massa, go on with your sports saying. What is that?
Oh, my word.
What did you say the last time?
Massa, please.
What did she say?
No.
Manchester United.
I don't support any London team.
Okay.
Leave me alone.
Which of the Manchester clubs do you support?
I don't support any. Leave me alone.
You don't support
No.
any? I'll give you a team. By the time I end sports, I'll find a team for you. You want a local team, right?
Only Gbogbo.
Only that day.
Only that day.
Only Supreme Court.
Only Hans Mensah Andor.
It means they kill me. Let's get into sports. And Manchester United, they could top the Premier League table after New Year's Day for the first time since they last won the title in 2013. If they draw or beat Burnley tonight ahead of that crucial game, head coach Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says their season begins tonight as it is important to establish themselves as title contenders.
We are better off this season than compared to the same time as last year. We won more games, we've scored more goals, we've played better football. So of course that's a positive. No one remembers January league tables, and for us it's just about developing this team, improving. I think we've shown again that we can bounce back after a disappointment. I thought the lads who played the FA Cup game showed good character, good attitude and quality. Since Sir Alex left, of course, we've been second, third, fourth, fifth, twice sixth, once seventh. So, of course, it's important for us now to establish ourselves up among the top four. We've only been top four 3 times since Sir Alex left. So, of course, if we can do that again after third, if we can improve on third, that's progress.
As Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer speaking there, and United, of course, are travelling away to Burnley tonight. A win sees them 3 points clear at the top of the table ahead of their Sunday fixture against Liverpool. And so in the next 2 games, if Manchester United win, they could be 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. And Emefa, I found a club for you. Doma Cheng Cheng Che.
Hey,
you heard that one?
That one too.
That one too.
You don't like that one?
Where did it come? Don't mind it. Change.
You don't like that one?
It's in Doma.
Asokwa Deportivo. You
that?
don't like that one?
No.
Oh, Iskado Bayern Munich.
I think I like that one.
You like Iskado
Yes,
Bayern Munich?
yes.
That's your
I think
club.
I like that
And
one.
that's your sport.
Thank you very much, Hans. Let's go back to education, shall we? Because this time, the Ghana Education Service is encouraging all girls who became pregnant or gave birth during the COVID-19 induced closure of schools to return to school. Speaking at the national launch of the Back to School and Re-Entry campaign organized by the Ghana Education Service, Mastercard Foundation and UNICEF, Deputy Director of the Ghana Education Service, Anthony Boatin, stated some children were also engaged in economic activities such as illegal mining during the break. Hence, there could be a challenge getting them to return to school.
The UNICEF Country Director, the PRO of the Ghana Education Service, Cassandra Chum, and others embarked on a house-to-house campaign to get children at the basic school level back to school after a long break. Deputy Director of the Ghana Education Service, Anthony Boatin, says authorities are particularly worried about girls who became pregnant or gave birth during the period.
Some girls unfortunately have become pregnant when schools were closed, and some of them have been given out into early marriages. To motivate such parents, guardians, students and pupils, and indeed the general public to support efforts at ensuring the return of all students and pupils to school, management of Ghana Education Service with support from some partners, initiated the Back to School campaign. The purpose is to sensitize Ghanaians, especially parents and community members, on the need for all children to return to school when school reopens. This means, therefore, that every Ghanaian child is being welcomed back to school, even including our girls, who for one unfortunate reason or the other got pregnant or gave birth in the course of the school closures. The GES still insists on sexual abstinence among all school children. However, under the current circumstance, we do not want any child to drop out of school simply because of COVID-19. That is why we are encouraging girls who are pregnant or those who have delivered to return to school.
The GES Deputy Director says to ensure there is no overcrowding in especially public basic schools, district directors of education have been tasked to put measures in place to ensure social distancing.
We have done our analysis. We have the figures. And we are saying that we'll be able to manage the situation. There will be some few schools where there will be overcrowding. And because there will be few selected and isolated, we are mandating our district directors who will be in charge of these specific schools to take specific decisions to ensure that the social distancing and the children can still learn in safety and in health.
UNICEF country representative Anne-Claire Duffy has been admonishing parents to ensure their children return to school.
But also you have some vulnerable groups, and indeed I mention adolescent girls because we are very concerned about the increasing number of girls who have become pregnant as teenagers, and some of them also got married before the age of 18. Now Ghana has policies and strategies protecting girls from teenage pregnancy and early marriage. But unfortunately with COVID, we sort of went backwards, and we are worried that we're going to lose all the gains that were made prior to the pandemic.
Maxwell Adudba filed that report. To stay with education, but this time at the tertiary level. 100 engineers in 10 years. That's the ambitious goal of former Deputy Education Minister Dr. Yaosei Duchum. Dr. Duchum, an educationist of over 2 decades, is hoping this initiative would help industrialize the largely farming Bosuntre constituency. Now, the first batch of 30, led by the MP himself, left the constituency on Monday to the University of Mines and Technology in Takwa, with their education fully funded. My colleague Justice Bedi was on that bus with them and has sent us this report.
Emmanuel Owusu left senior high school in 2019 with aggregate 10. 1 year after he had entered SHS, his father died. His middle-aged mother sold a plot of land, the only property she ever had in her name, so Emmanuel could finish school. Emmanuel had 5 other siblings.
In the senior high school, it wasn't easy. Sometimes I have to struggle. I have to starve and then learn. It wasn't easy.
It is very tough if you want your child to go to school and yet do not have money. It's a painful situation to be in.
Elsewhere, more than 2 hours drive away, in the village of Bedase, Jennifer Dankwa, she too, a 2019 SHS graduate, has been waiting to enter university.
I see myself as someone who will be great in the future. Although I come from the village, but I don't think like a villager. I always think like someone who is higher. So when I tell my dad I want to go to school, even this year, if it wasn't the MP, I would have stayed home because there was no money to take me to school, but I was still persistent.
Jennifer and Emmanuel are 2 of 30 people from the Bosuntre district going to university this year. They are on a special program by the Member of Parliament for the area, Dr. Yaosei Duchum. The program seeks to produce 100 engineers over the next 10 years. It's the break of dawn Monday. Most universities are admitting freshmen this week, and today, the students on Dr. Educhum's scholarship are going to school too. The MP has come to have a last-minute pep talk with them before they get on the road together.
This is the journey to Takwa, and it is that journey that is going to bear fruits that will transform us. Engineers are solution providers, engineers are problem solvers, and if you have a critical mass of them, then you will see the transformation. And when they come back, not only are they going to impact their communities and impact their families, they're also going to impact the nation called Ghana.
As these students make their way into UMAT, Many look forward to acquiring skills that will change their lives, in the hope that their toils and the investment in their lives will be fruitful for themselves, their families, and Bosomche, their home.
Erastus, well, that is Justice Bedu.
If all our MPs would do same,
exactly.
I think.
And he received a lot of praise on social
100
media.
engineers within, 10 years?
Within 10 years.
Wow.
So that's the first 30.
If all 275
in an interview
MPs.
with Daniel Dazi, he said next year he would sponsor another batch of 30, and he's doing same for. There's another target of getting 100 medical doctors as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
275 MPs. If we have all of them doing something like this, I'm sure.
Our needs are different, Emefa.
Okay, well.
But obviously we need to set very good targets that will help us. Now let's talk about illegal mining. 7 Chinese nationals have been arrested by the Environmental Sustainability Task Force in the Western region, seizing 10 excavators in the process. The renewed effort seeks to save the country's natural resources affected by the illegal mining activity being undertaken by these Chinese nationals. Love FM's Erastus Asari-Donko followed the team of armed military and police personnel to the Tabosere forest enclave. This is close to Diaso, and here's his report.
The team stormed the Tabosere forest enclave and caught Chinese miners by surprise. They have invaded the forest, destroying natural resources spanning about 10 football fields.
It looks like there is no end to this illegal mining craze. Now, deep within the Tabosere forest enclave, you could see over 10 excavators within this forest, destroying it with impunity.
The Oda River, which runs through this forest, has turned milky mud with no sign of life. The thick forest cover has been depleted, with scenes of tree species cut and buried in mud. One of the commanders loses balance as we thread dangerous routes, the only link between these illegal mining sites.
So far, nobody has been able to show us any legal documents binding their operations here.
One of them is Alhaji Isa Odati, who had physical confrontation with the task force. He claims the concession was awarded to him by the Minerals Commission, but has no documents to prove.
Site when create a Mineral Commission.
This site was given to us by the Minerals Commission. I'm into small-scale mining. We are not giving any documents.
And the rest of the Asari-Donko brought us that report, and that'll be it for Newsnight. But some other MPs are coming up for praise.
Yeah.
Samuel Kujato Ablako, we are told, is doing wonderfully well in his constituency, and Afenyo Markin as well.
Providing accommodation for
teachers.
So if you're also doing that as an MP,
and other professionals.
Yeah, we can do that for you as well. Thank you very much for your time here on Newsnight. The Geek Squad, they're up next. You want to stay for that.